everyone. Nothing sums up your priorities like laying out a budget which indicates what you would do if you could. And the President's budget has a 14% increase on the domestic side. It unrealistically assumes inflation at 2.8% this week and basically would fund defense at less than inflation. Completely and totally unrealistic at a time of big power competition with Russia and China and in the middle of the Ukraine war. Hopefully on a bipartisan basis, the Congress will have an entirely different set of priorities. With regard to Ukraine, I want to repeat, I think our goal here needs to be victory. If the President continues to kind of pull his punches, he talks a good game, but at key moments has been either too late or advocating things that could not be possibly provocative, like Polish MiGs going to Ukraine. So I think we need to be all in to win. By winning, I mean helping the Ukraine people who are putting up an incredible fight have a real chance at victory, and we need to help them every step of the way.
Well, as the leader pointed out, we have now seen President Biden's budget, which, as he indicated, is a statement of his priorities, which should be concerning to every American, because while Americans across this country are very concerned about rising prices, about inflation, the President's main priority seems to be historic tax increases. And in fact, as the leader pointed out, they are proposing a 4% increase in national security at a time when we're facing threats all around the globe. And yet they are increasing domestic spending 14% overall, but 18% for the Internal Revenue Service. They get an 18% increase, and maybe it's because they're going to need all the extra personnel to collect all the new taxes this administration is proposing. But is it completely out of step with what matters to the American people right now. And another area that doesn't receive any support within this budget is the ongoing crisis at the border, either on the humanitarian side or the national security side. In fact, not only does the Biden administration not address those issues and support the Department of Homeland Security, but it goes so far as suggesting, and they're reporting on this in the last few weeks, that they're going to end Title 42, which is a provision in the law that at least allows our border officials to somewhat control the flow across the border, particularly as it pertains to the pandemic. And the administration is completely at a loss when it comes to doing anything about the border, and even their own Democrats here in the Senate. The two Democrat senators from Arizona have said, please, please don't repeal Title 42. They have no plan in place to deal with what is already a disaster, but if the expectations come to fruition when they repeal Title 42, would be a catastrophe in terms of the humanitarian crisis that it would create at our southern border. The President's budget doesn't address the issues that are most important to the American people, and I sincerely hope that as the American people listen to the discussion about the President's budget and the issues that are important to them, that they will weigh in, and that this administration will get the message loudly and clearly that on an economic level, on the border, on what's happening in our cities with respect to crime, they are completely out of touch, not only with the American people, but with reality.
With regard to energy, the people in Europe are wide awake, and Joe Biden is still sleepwalking. The people in Europe clearly understand what a monumental mistake it was to be dependent on their energy from their enemies. Joe Biden continues to march to the tune of the climate elitists and extremists. You take a look at the budget that came out yesterday, 36 new taxes, 11 of them are on American oil, gas, energy, things that are going to increase the cost of energy for American families. So the President gave a speech last week talking about trying to help Europe, more LNG, going to send over to them. The administration was asked, where's it coming from? They said, we'll have to get back to you. We don't know. In the West, people call that all hat, no cattle. If the President is serious about helping the Europeans escape the problem they're having with energy, he needs to do three things. One is he needs to actually announce that we are going to produce more oil and gas here in America. That includes calling off his attack dogs and his regulators and actually helping us in America, the people that know how to do it, get the energy out of the ground. Number two is he's going to have to announce that he is for the permitting to allow the construction of the terminals to export liquefied natural gas as well as the pipelines to move that. One way to start is with a bill I've introduced called the Escape Act. He has to cut through the red tape that's stopping those things from happening right now. And the third thing he has to do is stop vilifying the hard-working men and women in this country who produce energy every day to keep the lights on and keep the vehicles moving across the country. They do a great job supplying energy for all of America. If the President does those three things, that message alone, sending to the markets, will lower the cost of energy for American families. It's not going to get the energy out of the ground overnight, but the people of Wyoming, the Rocky Mountain West, are ready to answer the call.
Well, more than 1 month after his assault on Ukraine, you have to wonder if Putin is more surprised by the incredible resistance of the Ukrainian people, the unity of NATO and the changing position in a positive way of NATO to defend freedom where they can and where they're obligated to, and in the neighborhood where they're obligated to, or the lack of performance by his own military. The report last week was 7 generals, including 2 lieutenant generals, have been killed. It's been reported that at least 10,000 Russian troops have been killed, tens of thousands of other Russian troops wounded and sent home that way. I think they lost 13,500 or so troops in Afghanistan in 10 years. They're in line to lose that in 10 weeks in Ukraine, and no matter how much you manage the media, the mothers know. The mothers know. And people know, and frankly, it appears that almost every Russian soldier has a cell phone with them, and they use it all the time. And they're reporting back their shock at what they're asked to do and what they're seeing done, and the resistance of people who look just like them and can generally speak Russian and hate the fact that they're there, as we hate the fact that the Russians are in Ukraine right now. We need to give them what they need when they need it, not what they need when it's convenient for us to manage to get it to them, but when they need it. The resistance of the Ukrainians has been incredible. It sends a message to the world that freedom still matters and you don't want to live under repression. We have a chance to have a very different discussion about freedom in the world today than I think we had 2 months ago, and we should make the most of it, and we should do everything we can to help Ukraine defend itself.
Folks, Ukraine can win this war. I'm very optimistic about that. I believe it. But as I have been saying, they do need the right weapons, and they need those weapons. They need that lethal aid right now. Not tomorrow, not in 2 weeks. They need it right now. So the administration has been touting the billions of dollars in lethal aid, humanitarian assistance that they have been sending to Ukraine. But we really need clarity on this. And I'm thankful we have been able to provide those dollars for the lethal aid. But we need it clearly outlined what those dollars are going for and how are we achieving our goals in Ukraine. The administration has yet to do that. So after the Codel last week, we had 10 bipartisan senators that attended this trip to Germany and Poland. We spoke with the Ukrainian civil society members. After that Codel, all 10 of us, Republicans, Democrats, and Independent, agreed that we all have to understand what our strategy is in assisting Ukraine. So today I have penned yet another letter to the administration. This one is a bipartisan letter, Democrats and Republicans. There's over 20 of us so far that have joined onto the letter, and we are sending this to the President's National Security Advisor, asking the Biden administration to provide a clear strategy on how the United States can help Ukraine win this war. And again, I believe they can win this war. We just have to know and understand what weapons are going in, how we're assisting humanitarian-wise, and it's important that the National Security Advisor narrow down his window of opportunity and speak with us here in the United States Senate and let us know what the strategy is and then how we can be helpful. But again, Ukraine can win this war.
Biden's budget's bad for American families. We already know we have $30 trillion worth of debt. Under his budget, the debt will increase over the next 10 years, $14.4 trillion, which is over $100,000 per family. He says we're going to have inflation of 2.9%. If you look at the numbers, we're at 7.9% now, and it sure appears it's going to continue to go up. $2.5 trillion worth of tax increases. It's going to have a lot of tax increases on our small businesses, which is going to hurt them. Next, let's look at what we've been doing up here. 16% increase in population over the last 20 years, a 310% increase in our budget. We've got to get this budget under control, and what Biden's doing is not going to help us.
How concerned are you at this stage with the vaccine is coming, that this money is not going to be available? And also, will there be any red lines in this bill, in this money, if it's approved, to prevent undocumented persons from being eligible for the vaccine?
Which money are you talking about?
COVID.
Yeah, well, look, Senator Romney's been talking to Senator Schumer and to others on 2 points. One, to justify additional COVID spending, and number two, how to pay for it. I mean, there's an enormous amount of money out of the $2 trillion bill passed last year that hadn't gone out yet. And I think Senator Romney can speak for himself, but he's been in the lead on this. It's my view that it ought to be entirely paid for out of money that's already in the pipeline by reprogramming it for whatever amount they can justify to get the job done.
Any red lines?
I think it ought to be paid. I think it ought to be paid for.
It was reported today that you declined 2 phone calls from President Trump on January 6, 2021. Why did you not take his phone calls? And in retrospect, would have been better if you had spoken with him to try to calm tensions down before he spoke at that rally.
Yeah, I've said repeatedly the last time I spoke to the president was the day after the Electoral College declared President Biden the winner. I publicly congratulated President Biden on his victory and received a phone call after that from President Trump, and that's the last time we've spoken.
Why didn't you take the call?
Did you try to call him back that day? Did you try to call former President Trump back that day?
I just answered your question.
Paul has held up the Russia trade relations bill. Have you spoken to Senator Paul about this? How important is it?
Well, we're hoping to move forward with the negotiated Mike Crapo, Ron Wyden proposal to withdraw the favored nation status from the Russians. We're not there yet, but I think there's a widespread feeling we ought to do that, and hopefully we'll figure out a way forward.
close. I mean, words came out.
Very clever. Not on my watch. All right.
I am to your left, where I should be.
Always. Okay. First, I'm joined by Senators Durbin, Hirono, and Padilla. And first, after watching Judge Jackson before the Senate Judiciary Committee, my respect, my admiration for her has never been higher. There's not a shred of doubt in my mind that she merits confirmation to the United States Supreme Court. It's worth repeating the 3 B's over and over again that I've used to describe her. Brilliant, beloved, and belongs. She belongs on the court. Because those words are undoubtedly true as applied to Judge Jackson. It's obvious why she's earned the support of everyone, from law enforcement to conservative judges to scores of peers. At the hearing, she displayed one of her greatest strengths, her grace and poise, even during moments when a handful of Republicans asked intentionally misleading questions even their fellow Republicans found uncomfortable. In fact, their nasty questions, I think, actually helped her, because it showed another dimension of this multifaceted, multi-talented woman. We're moving forward. Once the Judiciary Committee concludes its work, I will move her to have her nomination come to the floor in short order. The Senate is on track to have Judge Jackson confirmed by the end of this work period. While Judge Jackson is the highest profile judicial nominee so far, I want to highlight that Senate Democrats have confirmed a record number of President Biden's historically diverse and well-qualified judicial nominees. Of the 56 Senate-confirmed federal judges, 3/4 have been women and 2/3 have been people of color. These judges are diverse in their professional backgrounds and life experiences, as well as coming from a wide demographic. In fact, President Biden has nominated more public defenders, more civil rights attorneys, more nonprofit lawyers to the federal bench during his first year in office, if you add those 3 up, than any other president in history. Senate Democrats are proud of this record, and we're going to keep it going. We have judges being reported out of committee today. When did this 6th? Monday. And there'll be a bunch more, and this is one of the most important things we can do. These are lifetime appointments that are going to have a tremendous effect on the country and on people's lives for decades to come. Diversity matters in all its forms, good for the justice system, good for the health of our democracy. So, imagine the impact these nominees are going to have for countless young people. They look to the courts and they see men and women who reflect our country's rich diversity. Imagine how Ketanji Brown Jackson will inspire the next generation to pursue their own interests in public service, in law, and government. She showed you can stand up to bullies and haters with grace, with courage, and with increasing your respect and popularity. We need people from all walks of life to see that they have a place at the table when it comes to public service. I look forward to voting for Judge Jackson to become Justice Jackson very, very soon. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Schumer. Last week's hearing was tough. There were many questions that were asked by many senators, and let me say at the outset, the majority of the Republican senators, I thought, handled it properly and did it in a professional way, consistent with the aspiration she has to serve on the highest court of the land. Their questions were tough. They're supposed to be. And she answered them forthrightly. I respect them very much. 3 or 4 Republican senators went over the line as far as I'm concerned. What they asked was unfair, unrelenting, and beneath the dignity of the United States Senate. And guess who was listening? America. And the American people responded by saying positive things about Judge Jackson's performance at that committee hearing. They admired her grace, her toughness, her ability. No one questioned her qualifications or her resume. She's an extraordinary legal scholar and judge with a great experience coming to this job. But she showed herself to be rock solid when it came to the grilling that she went through from 3 or 4 Republican senators. They may have thought they were scoring points, but they were only scoring points on the QAnon website. The American people watched it and said they went too far, and they were right. I sincerely hope that we have Republican support for her nomination. I'm reaching out quietly to Republican senators and asking them to join us and make this a bipartisan, historic event. There are those within the Republican Party, I know from speaking to them, who understand the historic significance of this nomination and want to make sure that Mr. Lincoln's party, the grand old party, is on board, being at least some of them supporting her nomination. I think that can happen. We're going to continue to work toward that end. And finally, let me say that this was an extraordinary selection by President Biden. It's not the first where he has given us diversity and talent, extremely well-qualified individuals who are aspiring to lead our judiciary. This is a legacy of the Biden administration which we are working to solidify, and Judge Jackson is the best of the best. Thank you.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you. I share the sentiments of my colleagues with whom I'm proud to be here in support of Judge Jackson. She showed us what judicial temperament is. Calmness in the face of unfounded, unsubstantiated attacks by some members of the committee. And when she talked about being at Harvard and feeling as though maybe she didn't belong, and a black woman that she didn't know leaned to her and said, persevere, I had tears in my eyes because perseverance was the watchword for me when I was growing up. Judge Jackson showed what perseverance is, and when she is on the Supreme Court, she will be a powerful example of perseverance to everyone in our country, but especially to women and black women and girls. I'm proud to support her.
And last but not least, Senator Alex Padilla, G, California.
Thank you. It may sound a little repetitive, but it is absolutely worth repeating. Judge Jackson did a phenomenal job in the confirmation hearing last week and demonstrated that she is unequivocally more than qualified to serve on the Supreme Court. Her intellect was apparent, her experience and her record are second to none. And I'm proud to support her confirmation. And I echo what my colleagues have said, that the longer she withstood these baseless attacks, these false accusations, the brighter she shone, not just to the committee, but to America that was watching. She brings tremendous credentials to the position, and I give her extra credit, right? If we're teachers, I give her extra credit for the diversity her presence will add on the Supreme Court and the unique perspectives, yes, as a black woman, as a working mother, which we talked about in committee, and as the first former public defender, because as we discussed during the hearing, the right to counsel, the right to defense is important in our judicial system, important for our democracy. So for all these reasons, I'm proud to support her confirmation, and I will end with this. If after reviewing Judge Jackson's record and credentials, not a single Republican can bring themselves to vote for her, it would be a sad day for the nation because of the message it sends. If Republicans are genuine in suggesting that we need to also work towards restoring faith and confidence in the judiciary, including the highest court in the land, there is no reason they shouldn't be supportive. Judge Jackson has earned bipartisan support from the United States Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator D. California. Go ahead.
Given that you have power to set the schedule and how important it is to send a message to Russia, why not file cloture this week on the Russia trade bill to overcome Rand Paul's objection and get this bill passed?
Senator Cardin and Senator Paul are negotiating right now to see if they can come up with a compromise.
Why not file cloture?
Next.
Now, we talked last week about this COVID money here. If you're going to have Jackson's nomination on the floor and get that done at the end of this work period in the next week, that sounds like this COVID deal. Even if there is a deal, it's going to be on the calendar until late April. Is that going to be a problem? And will that meet the deadline if they're going to approve?
Look, the sooner we can do this, the better. Senator Romney and I met last night, and we are trying to come to an agreement. He was going to try to persuade his Republican colleagues that the agreement we've come for, which is fully paid for, that the agreement that the ideas we talked about, we didn't shake hands on an agreement, can get the support of 10 members of his caucus, and then if we can get a time agreement, we can move it rather quickly. That's our goal, because it can't wait. This is too important. We need the therapeutics. They're brilliant. They're great. But if we get, God forbid, another wave of COVID comes and we don't have those therapeutics, the vaccines, we need newer vaccines. We need vaccines to deal with the fourth booster that they've just approved today for people over 50. And we also need testing. If COVID comes upon us, again, another variant, and we are not prepared, and it takes 2-3 months to get going, and by then the new variant has its tentacles deep in our society, woe is us. So this is very important. This should not be a partisan issue. This is about the future of America. Go ahead, Burgess.
Where do things stand right now with Senator Manchin and another reconciliation?
Look, there are ongoing discussions between Senator Manchin and many senators. It's a high priority on our caucus to try and move forward on reconciliation. It's going to be hard. We know that. We'll try to get as much done as we can that gets 50 votes. That's where we're at. There's a ways to go. There's a ways to go.
Thank you. One of the foreign ministers says that this country has demanded that the United States delist the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from the list of terrorist organizations. Are you and other Democrats?
Yeah, we haven't seen the proposals yet, so we're not commenting. Yes.
What do you think about the own call for Justice Thomas to step in light of the text messages?
Yeah.
And then also,
Well, you only get one under my rules.
do you think that Congress should
Then I get to pick which one I want. Go ahead.
Do you think that Congress should implement a stronger code of ethics for the Supreme Court?
Okay, well, first, I do think he should recuse himself. The information we know right now raises serious questions about how close Justice Thomas and his wife were to the planning and execution of the insurrection. And yes, I believe I'll answer both your questions. You were very clever. I think there should be some kind of code of ethics for Supreme Court justices. Last one.
Well, specifically looking into the role that he's already played a part in regarding the NARA files, do you think that there needs to be an investigation into this?
Well, the January 6th committee is investigating and doing a good job, and I think they will turn over every stone, and we await to see the outcome. But there's enough evidence already, I believe, that he should recuse himself.
So from a Senate
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.